Hey, what's up, YouTube? I'm here to do a video that I was thinking about for a long time. And it took me a little time, really, just to compile the list of, well, what I'm about to talk about. But now I finally have figured out the list. I really wanted to share this video because I think it's interesting, and maybe you could share your ideas on it too. Although I think I have a pretty solid top 10 here. And my top 10 is the top 10 Godzilla kills. Now, the rules aren't very strict, and I'm not gonna make any ridiculous rules like, it has to be a solo kill with no help, because Godzilla has had a lot of help over the years, actually, from other monsters and the humans, actually. So the only real rule is that Godzilla has to be involved with, I would say, at least only one other contributor. Like, I wouldn't really count to death and destroy all monsters when they kill King Ghidorah, because he had the help of, I think, 10 other monsters or so to end that fight. So that's one of the one I'll just knock right off the bat. That won't be on the list. But let's just delve right into it, guys. Like I said, there's no real strict rule list. This is just my personal top 10 favorite kills. Number 10. Number 10, I'm going to put Megaguirus in Godzilla versus Megaguirus, or in known Japanese, Godzilla X Megaguirus, the Godzilla Elimination Project. What a title. But yeah, I picked this as number 10 because it was the end of a really, really superb fight that tried different things. Because the whole thing with the fight, Godzilla is outmatched by Megaguirus' superior speed, and Megaguirus also kept nullifying his breath every time he tried to use it. She absorbed the energy, and eventually was even using it against him. So for a long time, he had several disadvantages. He was both handicapped because he didn't have his heat ray, and he was outmatched in terms of speed. But the great thing about this fight, well, two things. First off, this movie is known for definitely being the campiest, maybe, besides Final Wars, of course, of the Millennium series. And that's probably true. However, it's still damn entertaining, though. Like, I love that moment in the fight when Godzilla goes down from Megaguirus' wing blast, and then they do the slow motion, and you really know it's not going to happen, but still at the same time, the sheer awesomeness of doing the slow motion, you think Megaguirus has stabbed Godzilla in the face with her stinger, and then you turn around and you see Godzilla actually caught the stinger in his mouth, which he then destroys with a single twist of his jaws. And then that was just awesome. Then you see Megaguirus realizing the only weapon that was keeping her pretty much in the fight is now gone. And then Godzilla lets loose with his heat ray, and boom, she's dead with a single shot. But that's not enough for Godzilla. He goes in for another shot and blows her to bits. It was incredible. Which is just, kind of funny. I mean, all that time it only took one shot, but just couldn't land one. So I just thought that was really interesting, and that's why it's my number 10. Moving on to number 9. Number 9, we're going way back to the Showa era, to Godzilla vs. Megagodzilla in 1974. Yes, I'm including the decapitation of when Godzilla kills the original MechaGodzilla in their, technically second round of combat. Now, this one, once again, like I said before, I can count help because he did kind of help from King Caesar. Although, to be honest, Godzilla really did most of the actual heavy lifting, and he's the one that negated Mechagodzilla's attacks, becoming a living magnet. And then, I'm so glad he did this, because of the fact that Godzilla's most opponents, well, every opponent he ever really had in the show era had been pretty much organic one. They didn't really do anything super graphic as far as killing them, but because this one was a robot, they decided, hey, why not? We have him literally rip this guy's head off. And because he's a robot, it's not that gory. It's not gory at all, really. Which is funny for a very gory fight where Godzilla had took a lot of damage and bled quite profusely, speaking of gore. But yeah, seeing Godzilla just rip Mechagodzilla's head off was pretty awesome. And that's a quick one for me. I mean, I just really into it. It's just awesome. He ripped damn guy's head off. uh, Moving on to number 8. Now, as we all know, it's pretty much a meme now. Mothra has died so many times in the franchise. It's just commonly known as something really funny that keeps on happening, and we want to see what's going to happen in the Godzilla King of the Monsters. See if Godzilla will inevitably kill Mothra with one shot hit kill, like he usually does. So I had to think to myself, out of all the Mothra deaths, which one had the most impact? And that's really hard considering she's died in many times in Lame series, 3 times, and in once in the Showa era. So which one really stays with me the most? And I'm gonna go with Godzilla Tokyo SOS, that death, because, and this is, mind you, this is coming after the GMK death, which was pretty spectacular in its own right. However, the thing to me that elevates this death just a little bit higher than that one is the fact that right after Godzilla kills her with his heat ray, the first thing you see is you cut back to the two Mothra larvae looking up at their dead mother and just crying out in despair, and their eyes, of course, turn red, which is a really great effect. That to me was great because in GMK we did have humans mourning the loss of Mothra, but here we had to see something we hadn't seen before: the Mothra larvae actually seeing their mom die, and that was pretty interesting, pretty damn interesting, especially considering that not since Rebirth of Mothra had we seen a Mothra larva on screen at the same time as the Mothra adult. And seeing that come to an end with the death of Mothra, the mom basically getting killed right in front of them, pretty heart wrenching, and makes Godzilla just one evil bastard for doing it. So yeah, that's my favorite Mothra death. Moving on to number 7. Number 7, Godzilla versus Hedorah. Just another one of those really hard fought battles. One of the ones that Godzilla needed the help of humans to win. And Hedorah, who once again was a very unique opponent because Godzilla's breath didn't really do shit to him. Just touching Hedorah was damaging even for Godzilla because his acidic body nature even melted down Godzilla's tough skin, which is pretty crazy. And that's the great thing, Hedorah was one of those guys that was just really hard to kill. So when the humans and Godzilla finally dried out his body, man, Godzilla went to town on him. Godzilla helped, once he was down and kind of basically badly wounded, Godzilla starts ripping his body apart, which is pretty brutal when you think about it. Blast with the heat ray again, they shock him again, and then he continues ripping his body apart. I mean, probably one of the goriest deaths for a Godzilla villain, really. I mean, damn. Ripped him to pieces, just could not let him be. That was a pretty awesome fight and definitely an awesome end to it. I must admit, just really great. They need to bring back Hedorah for one of these damn movies. So moving on to that, number 6, Destoroyah from Godzilla vs. Destoroyah. This pretty much follows the same concept. These fights end kind of the same way after similar styled battles, and really they could have been interchangeable. The only reason why I put this one higher is because, like the Mothra death from Tokyo SOS, this has the emotional impact also. The fact that this is the guy that killed Godzilla Jr. So we really want to see Godzilla finally get rid of this asshole. And then Godzilla finally does it. He finally is able to take down and destroy with the help of the humans who don't allow him to escape. And people have been debated for a long time whether it was Godzilla or the humans who actually killed him. And most people argue that Godzilla still definitely gets to kill because he did all the damage. And the only reason the humans really helped because they destroyed his wings so he couldn't escape. And then once Destoroyah hit the ground, they say he died because Godzilla was superheating the ground with his body, which led to, as we saw in the movie, just pretty much dissolve as soon as Destoroyah hit the ground. So that's a pretty viable theory. And let's face it, Godzilla once again did all the heavy lifting there. He blew Destoroyah's body apart, and the fight was pretty much in the bag for him. So yeah, that's my that'd be my number 6. Pretty awesome. Let's see, and then number 5. You knew this was going to be on here. Zilla from Godzilla Final Wars, because man, that was awesome. Ever since 1998, Gino had pretty much stained the franchise's legacy, and this is the stuff people have been looking forward to for years. This movie is legendary for this moment, and the way it was done in a movie that definitely not one of my favorites, Godzilla Final Wars, but this moment I always watch over and over again because it's just so damn funny and spot on. Zilla rushes in at Godzilla in a very cocky manner. He jumps at him with one swing of his tail. He knocks him into a building, and then Godzilla kills him with a fucking nuclear heat ray. Boom, end of fight. Damn. It was so brutal, so quick, and it's really believable too because if this guy can be killed by missiles from a jet, then yeah, he doesn't stand a chance against Godzilla, who doesn't even flinch when he's hit by human weapons. And so just the way that was done was just epic. I mean, I know some people out there, especially since the comic books have now been showing Zilla as an actual likable character, I think the fight between them would actually be a lot better if it was more even. And maybe in the future, at some point, we'll get that, although I highly doubt it. But that was just still awesome. I mean, this is probably one of the few ones I put on here because it was funny, and in the end, they had the Xenon leader saying, oh, I knew that 2.5 was enough too much, and then just says next. Like, wow, well, we got that out of the way with Godzilla finally took back the title of God with that moment. Just a very funny death. Love it, love it. Now we move into, well, where do we hit the top five? That was my number five, but here's number four. And this one you may not be expecting. Number four, Kumonga's death and the son of Godzilla. It's really sad. This is a really underrated fight in the franchise. Most people don't know about. Of course, Son of Godzilla is kind of maligned in the franchise, but I think it's actually a lot better than people give it credit for. I think if Ifukube scored and a better looking Godzilla suit, better looking Manila, obviously, it'd probably be a lot higher in the franchise's rankings because this movie's actually pretty good plot wise, and all the monster designs outside of Godzilla Manila, Kamakuris and Kumonga look great, and the fight with Kumonga is actually pretty cool because the first thing we see is Kumonga kill a Kamakuris, which is neat. And then Kumonga actually gives Godzilla a lot of trouble during the fight. But the reason why I put this fight so high on the list because it's the first and only time in the franchise we see two Godzillas launching their heat rays at one target. That was awesome. That was epic. Godzilla and Manila both blast Kumonga with their breath simultaneously, ending the fight. And it is something we have not seen since, which is so funny for a movie that really is really campy with the Godzilla Manila interaction for the entire thing. Seeing that moment just made it all worth it. Which is why, because the funny thing is, I saw Godzilla Final Wars before I saw this movie. So when I saw this, I was like, wow, why did they do something that cool for Godzilla Final Wars? You know, make him, first of all, Manila look badass, not look like shit. And then have a moment like that where they team up at the end to kill an opponent because, damn, that was awesome. And we have not seen anything like it since. That's why I like that moment in Godzilla Half Century War. You see Godzilla and Kiryu blasting, I believe it was King Ghidorah or Gigan. One of them, I can't remember, I've read that comic in a long time. But that shot of both of them launching the heat rays at the same exact time on their opponent, pretty cool. So yeah, that I know it may sound kind of dumb, but I don't know. That shot of two Godzillas launching heat rays at the exact same time is just awesome. Hasn't been, like I said, it has not replicated since, and hopefully we see it again at some point. Although as of right now, I don't think either franchise, the Japanese one and the American, I don't think either one of them has ideas to or plans to bring a baby Godzilla into the mix. But they definitely should. They definitely should just make him cool like Godzilla Jr. in the Heisei era. Moving on to number 3. Godzilla Raids Again, The Death of Anguirus. This was a good one. I put this on so high on the list because first off, this movie is very, it's not on many people's top 10s, I guess you would say. But I mainly picked it because, once again, this brutality of this moment. Basically, Godzilla kills Anguirus after a long fight with a bite to the neck. Nothing more, nothing less. No heat ray, no exaggerate, rip the body apart or blow it apart with a heat ray. No, he just bites into Anguirus' neck. You see the blood, and after that, just lets his body drop to into the water, and that's it. Anguirus is finished. I like that because it's simple and it's very animalistic. And this was Godzilla is very early, just afraid for a sequel, so they definitely were trying to keep it more animalistic, and it succeeded very well. There's no human stylization there, any kind of comedy. It's just a dark moment and a very simple but effective death. And nothing, like I said, this is once again nothing like it has appeared since. And this is the honest truth. I mean, I can't think of a single death that Godzilla did that was that effective, that simple. I could have included something like that from Godzilla versus Mothra 1992. Pardon me, 1992 when Godzilla killed Batra in a similar manner. But this movie did it first, And once again, without any heat ray involvement, so I got to give it points for that. That's definitely one of my favorites. And now for the top two. I think people saw this one coming, but they thought it might be number one. Number two, I'm giving this number two spot to Godzilla killing the female MUTO with the heat ray down the throat. Because, man, everybody loved that scene. Whether you loved or hated this movie, everyone can say that scene was awesome. He opens up her mouth, breathes heat ray right down her throat, and then the heat of it just melts her neck away, obviously killing her. And then he just holds the head like a real badass. That is by far one of the best Godzilla climaxes to a fight I've ever seen in my life. It just, wow. It was incredible. And I'm going to lose my thoughts because that was just so awesome. And, this has been done before, technically speaking, because Godzilla's Biollante, Godzilla breathed his breath down Biollante's throat, but that didn't kill her. So obviously I couldn't include that, although it did bring the fight kind of to a close, but didn't necessarily kill her per se. But that, in Godzilla 2014, that was finite. It was over and in the most badass way possible. And then he gives a roar. So that just high on the list. But what could be more badass than that? Well, like I said, this has been done before, and Ala Biolante with finite, no doubt about it, that guy is dead. So the number one spot goes to Godzilla 2000 when Godzilla kills Orga. This is once again not one of my favorite Godzilla fights, honestly. In fact, almost all the fights in this list I liked more than this one. In fact, yeah, honestly, I did like almost more, except for maybe the Godzilla versus Anguirus fight, Godzilla Raids Again. That's definitely one of my lower tier fights. But and this fight was interesting, although I think it could have been more interesting with a better looking opponent than Orga. However, the way Godzilla finally ends the fight is just undeniably badass. Having me rewinding it every time I saw the movie the first time. After Orga just keeps on regenerating, one of those opponents that are hard to put down, although not quite as challenging as, say, Hedorah or Destoroyah, Godzilla finally figures it out. Blow him up from the inside. So Godzilla literally shoves his head down Orga's throat. Orga somehow thinks this is like Godzilla's surrender, so he just starts eating him. And right in the middle of Orga evolving from getting more Godzilla DNA, Godzilla powers up. And he doesn't use the heat ray per se. He's using, some people will say it's not the nuclear pulse, but come on, it's the nuclear pulse. And I believe it was in fact, I think it was the only time we saw a nuclear pulse in the Millennium series, which is basically Godzilla releases energy not just from his mouth, but from all around his body in a short wave, and bam. Well, yeah, Godzilla obliterated this guy. He blew his entire upper half of the body off. And not only is that in itself awesome, plus you see Orga's reaction, like, oh shit. You see his eye just open up, like, oh, fuck, what have I done? Then Godzilla blows the shit out of him. And then to make it even more funny, at the end, we have Godzilla just sitting there. It's like the Oval West. The Oval West. It's like a kind of a Western almost type of thing, It's kind of hard to explain. It's very stylized. Godzilla's standing there. Orga's body's there. Godzilla roars once, kind of like, a cowboy blowing smoke out of his gun. And then Orga's body just slowly topples over. And then Godzilla just roars into the sky. That is by far one of the most badass death scenes in a Godzilla movie, and definitely the most awesome way to kill an opponent. Both Legendary and Toho have to find a way to top that because that was pretty freaking awesome. It was brutal, stylistically awesome, and it looked great. I have no complaints with the way that death looked. And it was very clever for Godzilla to do that after trying to figure out how to beat an opponent who keeps regenerating after you keep blowing him apart. Blow him apart at very close range. And from the inside. So that was awesome. That's my top 10 Godzilla kills. If you'd like to put your own list down below, go ahead. I'm very curious to see it, see if I missed any, but I had to look at my Godzilla DVDs and really think hard about which fights had the best endings, as far as killing them, of course. But yeah, guys, that's my top 10 list of Godzilla kills, and I hope you enjoyed it.